Okay, so I think I'm the first one since I'm chapter three. And my chapter was all about clinical and counseling psychology, which was really interesting to learn about. I know that we dived a little bit into it in class, but a little like a second overview is basically clinical counseling is, or clinical psychology basically looking at like the medical model, and it tends to be used in like hospital settings. It's psychological practice, consultation, or conducting research. And then for counseling, you're looking at people more like holistically, trying to like help them, not just using the medical model, but kind of looking at like all aspects of their life. And that tends to be more so like employed in university counseling centers. And then it goes over like the different degrees that you, or like what jobs you can do with different degrees that you get. For bachelor's, there's like human service worker, social worker, substance abuse counselor. And then with like master's degree, there's the marriage and family therapy, the licensed professional counselor, and the master of social work. And then for the doctoral degree, there's kind of like two programs, which is the clinical and counseling psychology and the combined programs, which kind of I think we brushed over it in class, but the combined one just kind of like goes into like both the clinical and the counseling aspects. And then the PhD is focused more on like science and practice, whereas the PsyD focuses more so on the practice. But either way, there's a really long licensure process that got really detailed in the chapter. So it was just a lot. It was really interesting. And then some additional jobs that you can do is like program development and evaluation, as well as administration. Um, so yeah, it was a really cool chapter. But you have any questions?
Do you feel like most people in psychology gravitate towards counseling and therapy?
Yeah, I feel like they do. I was reading a stat that I think it was in 2013, 50% of people got a degree. I think it was a master's or a doctoral degree in like counseling or clinical psychology instead of like going to do other things. So it's
Yeah,
just really interesting.
valid.
Yeah.
It talk a lot about like the difference between having a bachelor's degree and having a master's degree as far as that goes.
Yeah, it talked a little bit about it. It was kind of saying that like the master's degree is good, but if you want to go into more of like a science, like you want to do like the research part of things as well, like more like the scientific part, then you'd want to go into doctoral degrees as well because that doesn't rush into it as much during the master's degree. Um, and I think they're saying that like for being like a licensed professional counselor, you can get that with a master's degree, but you only want to go into like a doctorate degree for that if you want to do more research aspects. Otherwise,
I forgot to clock out.
oh no.
Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like I'm like brushing really like quickly over it, but it definitely goes
Sorry,
into
guys.
detail about it. So
You mentioned something about like program development, right?
yeah, yeah. Um, they like I think it's when you get your master's or doctoral, you can also like clinical and counseling psychologists often do careers in program development and evaluation, basically helping create the programs that they follow for like counseling or clinical. So you work less like the clientele, like patient one-on-one, but you work more about like how to structure those programs and how to structure like those conversations, and trying to help them through the different things that they're going through. So it's that like definitely really like impactful. But it's a different aspect to the job. So it was really interesting to also read about that.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. Does the next chapter want to go?
Sure. Okay, so basically, I decided to go in with school psychologist. I thought that school psychology is great. I think every child needs a little an adult to look forward to, especially when they're struggling mentally. But pretty much a school psychologist with a bachelor's degree, you could become a TA, you could become a teacher, and you could also become like a special needs teacher, which I thought was pretty interesting. Something that I did not know uh, in between of your master's and your doctorate, you could also like be supervised, so you could get your practicum over a school, being a school psychologist. Um, and then after that, you can also take the exam, and I guess that's what makes you licensed. I'm not 100% sure about that. Um, Overall, with the doctorate degree, obviously you can become a school psychologist. You could still become a teacher if you'd like, or you could just be like a social worker kind of. Something that I found really interesting as well, which is similar to Marla's, was program development. Um, they just do research as well, implement what's best for the students. Sometimes one of the benefits of being a school psychologist is obviously you get to work as little as you want, or you could be a full-time school psychologist. But one of the disadvantages would be that you wouldn't have necessarily a job since there's just one school psychologist per school. But besides that, you could also work like in a clinical, or you could even be like a private school psychologist. And yeah, that's what I figured out in my chapter as a school psychologist.
I was curious, I think you probably already covered this, but do you have to get a doctorate degree to become a school psychologist?
You do have to become get a doctorate degree to become a school psychologist, sadly. There's no like easy way out of it, but I mean, I guess being a teacher is great too, if you really like kids. Yeah, with the BA or a teacher assistant. Yeah.
Question on that too, like for a BA, could you
Mhm.
work what level of education? Do you know?
From what I can understand, it could be like from literally elementary school kids to university facilities. So yeah.
Are you interested in pursuing a career in that? Is that why you picked that chapter, or are you just interested in it?
To be honest, I thought that was super cool to just learn about. Would I be a school psychologist personally? I don't think so, but it was nice to know. Yeah. Does anybody want to go next?
I think my chapter's next, chapter 5. So I did forensic psychology. Usually, whenever you think about that, you probably think of like Netflix TV shows, like, let's see, Criminal Minds. But it's not exactly the same. Like, obviously, TV is way more dramatized. But there's some things that are the same. Like, some of the career options with just a bachelor's or training could be like a police officer. But if you want to pursue forensic psychology with a degree, you can do, let's see, you can be a detention worker, a probation and parole officer, an interviewer, a forensic examiner, police psychologist. There's a lot of options you can do in forensic psychology, and they mainly work in the legal system. Let's see what else they do. They consult with attorneys, judges, law enforcement agencies, etc. So yeah, that's what forensic psychologists do.
Would you be a forensic psychologist?
I've thought about it, but I'm actually taking a forensic psychology class at PLNU. Well, here. And I don't know, the more I learn, the more I'm like not interested.
Are you in the class that's the Zoom class right before this? Yeah, me too. I didn't know you were in that class.
Yeah, I don't really have my camera on.
Yeah, I don't either.
Well,
It is very interesting, but I agree. Like that class makes me not want to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so if it's not like what exactly would you do then? Like if it's not kind of like what the TV shows were saying, or like it just kind of asking questions and research and stuff?
There's a
Or
lot of different options you can do. Like being a behavioral analysis person is a field, but I don't think it's near as exciting as TV portrays it,
Mm.
you know? If you've seen that show. It's probably more like office and desk work, honestly. But I don't know. I've never been one.
I can go next. I'm chapter 6, unless you guys want to keep talking about forensics. So I had health psychology, and from what I read, a bachelor degree in health psychology is very multidisciplinary. Like you can pursue many things. However, most things require additional training. Like you could be a physical therapy assistant, you could be an occupational therapist, but both of those require a BA and then plus additional years of training sort of in that field. But a doctoral degree in health psychology, they can pursue research and a lot of academic research, which was really interesting. Like the warning labels on cigarette packaging, those were like administered by health psychologists. Like they make a lot of federal and state public policies and promote a lot of like healthy lifestyles. And to be a health psychologist, you essentially, from what I read, they say you need a doctoral degree, but I also read that you can get a master's level education. I'm not entirely sure about that. But yeah, they do a lot of academic research and they can also lead like groups and rehab centers. So rehabilitation for smoking, and they work a lot in hospitals too, for patients that are like have trouble smoking. For example, like if they're getting treated for like lung cancer or something, but they have to stop smoking, then they'll like bring a health psychologist in and make them create like a plan to help that person stop smoking. But then a big problem was with health psychology, they don't get a lot of recognition. Like in the hospitals, it's mostly like the doctors that get like all the recognition. So that's something that's been changing a lot, though, that they've been getting a lot more recognition for what they do, and the field has been increasing a lot in people that do it. So that's what I read in health psychology.
So
Um,
a doctor, oh, sorry, my bad. Go
you
ahead.
go first.
Sorry. So a doctorate degree is required to become a school psychologist or
So
BA?
that's
Sorry, I
what
got confused.
no, it's okay. I was still confused a little bit about that as well. From what I understood, you can get an education in health psychology, which like constitutes a bachelor's degree. But if you want to be a licensed health psychologist, I remember at one point the reading said a doctoral degree is required, but also somewhere else it said that a master's level education is often enough. I think it depends on what you want to do.
Cool, cool. Thank you.
Mhm.
I was just curious, like, what you'd be most interested in doing, because I know that you're interested within like health psychology. So would you want to go on to like getting a bachelor and helping like create those, I guess I don't know, like the warnings for the cigarette packages, or like would you want to do
Yeah.
more like client interaction?
Yeah, I definitely like client interaction. I took lifestyles medicine here last year, and that was a super interesting class because it's like it really talked about how just everyday living contributes a lot to like being healthy and instead of more just being medicated for things, if that makes sense. So I really like that aspect of health psychology. It's where it's more like, okay, what does your everyday look like? And how can we change that? And that can make a huge difference.
So health psychologists don't prescribe medicine. It's more
No.
like your lifestyle changes or your medicine, pretty much like preventative measures.
Yeah, it's very preventative.
Cool.
Okay, if everyone's done talking about that, I can go. I had sports psychology, which a sports psychologist, I mean, a sports psychologist isn't really a job. That's just like you can major in psychology and then have a minor or a double major in like physical education, counseling, athletic training, or like sports medicine. And then you can use that to kind of pursue different careers in the sports industry and basically use like the knowledge you have from psychology to apply it to your job. is kind of what I was gathering from the reading. So like, for example, if you're going to be a coach, you can use the skills that you got in your psychology classes to help like teach kids and know the best techniques for motivating them and reinforcing them and stuff like that. So some job opportunities within the realm of sports psychology would be like a fitness instructor, like I said before, a coach, a physical education teacher, an athletic trainer, or a sports reporter, which I thought was interesting too, because it said in order to be a sports reporter, you need a journalism degree. And like you don't even need a psychology degree, but a psychology degree can help if you're like analyzing athletes and analyzing behaviors and stuff like that. So it's basically like any of these jobs, you don't necessarily need psychology to have them, but it can be helpful, like just furthering your skills. And then as far as like degrees go, with a bachelor's degree, you can do any of these things, but a master's degree will just help you be more like specialized in that field and like make more money because you have like a higher level job, more of like you're managing a group of coaches or something like that, which is interesting. So if you're interested in sports, it does sound very interesting. Yeah, that's kind of my summary.
Are you interested in sports psychology?
Um, Honestly, no, but I do love sports and working out and stuff. So it was really interesting for me to read. Oh, the thumbs down. It was really interesting for me to read it and see. It wasn't something that I had really considered before, but like I honestly could see myself being like a coach or something like that. Like I think it would be cool.
What would you coach?
Soccer, because that's what I played soccer my whole life.
Oh, sweet.
Are there like PhD level degrees in sports, or is that just like a master's is like considered the highest?
Yeah, I mean, I would think you, I don't really remember. I think you could get like a PhD in something related, like medicine, and apply it like in that term, like in going into research of sports medicine, because PhD is just like more research. So if you're pursuing more of a research degree, but I can't remember if there's like actual, I'm sure there's specifics that you can go into, but it really talked about kind of like lower level degrees because a PhD is not really necessary if you want to be a coach or if,
Yeah, that'd be interesting to research in
but if,
sports. Like,
yeah, if you want to go further, there was a section about research that I honestly kind of just glazed over because I'm not huge into research. But it did talk about it a little bit.
Cool.
Cool. Well, if we all feel good, then I'll go ahead and end the recording. Thanks, guys, for the discussion.
Yeah.